Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Full Potential Show. I'm James Rick. This is your number one non-boring source for personal development. And today on the line, we have Bob Turel. Bob, you can learn more about Bob at PresCoach.com. Now, Bob is like what's happening in America today. He's gone through the experience of working for a company for a number of years, getting laid off, and then having to dig deep to discover what it is he's good at and what it is he wants to devote the rest of his life to. So he's literally reinvented himself recently, and he is the presentation coach. And he's also focused in the niche of helping people to do and present in video commercials, which I told Bob was an excellent niche. So, Bob, thank you so much for being on today's Full Potential Show.
Thank you, James. It's a pleasure to be here.
Now, let's talk about your experience in today's economy, for example. You worked for a number of years and then you get laid off. What is that experience like? I mean, so many are going through it right now, but what is that experience like for you, and what caused you to make the shift from, well, instead of looking for work in a similar field or, trying to get employed again, hell, I'm just going to go out, I'm going to do it on my own now and do something that lights me up? That's
a great summation. Sure. The first feeling, James, like I think almost every other human being has, is the feeling of you've been separated. Something is changed and you weren't ready for it exactly. But I love the phrase you use, you dig deep down inside, and guess what you find out? Oh, yeah, you were ready for it. Yeah. You just weren't aware of it.
The universe is like, bang, get out there. You got to do this now. Maybe it's the thing you've been saying you were always going to do, but you just didn't do it because you were comfortable.
And in fact, other people would say, this is that little boot in the you-know-where to help you get going now that you've got the awareness.
Yeah,
so
it hurts, but
a lot of your books are about it. Awareness is the first step to saying, who am I? And more importantly, what do I want to do? And I realize I'm preaching to the choir, James, but once you taste that, you can never forget that taste. It's such a great thing because it takes you from a depressed canyon to a mountain's peak. I mean, it literally says to you, come on, are you kidding? There's light there. There's opportunity, man. All you've got to do is open your eyes and see it. So that's what I really feel like I've gone through. A change, but one that is more of awareness rather than a life change.
Mm-hmm. And the first thing you became aware of is that the opportunity is there.
Correct.
And you were open to it, because so many people might say, oh, it sucks, the economy sucks, this happened. I was in the bank the other day and the lady said, oh, your husband's unemployed. Who's not unemployed these days? We're lucky to be employed. But you're looking at it and you're saying, there's opportunity out there. Even if nobody's hiring, I'm going to hire myself to do what my life work is supposed to be about.
Excellent way to put it. Because once you do hire yourself, then, to use that expression, you're your own boss. You can almost do anything. You write your own ticket, James, and then you're just left to your own creative devices. And let's face it, you know how that goes. Just let your mind wander and let your body follow.
Well, one of the things that I went through for myself is, I calculated I was making about $2.50 an hour when I hired myself first out of high school. I mean, I was like, am I nuts? My friends are making 10 times more than I am. I have the ability. Why am I settling for $2.50 an hour? But because I hired myself, there is no ceiling on where you can go as an entrepreneur. And I think that's an important distinction. You may struggle a little at first, but as long as you're every day finding ways to improve what you're doing and add more value, there's no ceiling on where you can go.
That's correct. And when you continue to maintain that philosophy, James, there are no boundaries, there are no limits except for the ones you design yourself. So all you really have to do is follow your dream. I know that's a hackneyed phrase, it's an old-fashioned phrase, but it really comes down to that, James. As I read some of your blog stuff and your history today, I think just think back to the driveway where your mom bought all your finger paintings. I mean, that's where the seed's planted, guy. It becomes, you know what? I've been doing this so long, but I've been doing it for somebody else. I'm the boss. So let's ride.
And my mom was my best client, and you're right. It did plant a seed. It said, I can do this, and I can make money doing what I want to do. It's interesting you mentioned that too, Bob, because when I started out in business, I thought that's what everybody did because my dad was an entrepreneur. I thought, that you just come up with an idea and you start doing it as a business. It never occurred to me that the norm is to have a job, and that entrepreneurship is this risky thing that, crazy people do. So what inspired you, Bob, to take the next step? I mean, coming from this, comfortable, familiar zone to, craziness, non-structure, risk. A lot of people want to make that shift right now. How did you do it, and what inspired you to do it?
I'm glad you mentioned your zone concept, because once again, I was reading about that too. And the first zone you're in when you think you're comfortable, James, is that corporate structure. And you know what I've been blessed with? Because even when I was in that structure, I acted like an entrepreneur anyway. That's different, because a lot of people just sit there and go, James, is it 5 o'clock? Time to go home? That's different than saying, no, man, I'm wired. I'm ready. I'm geared. So the transition wasn't as profound when I was booted out the door, because I already had the headset to say, you know what? I'm a marketeer. I'm a speaker. I'm a presenter. I'm ready to rock and roll for myself. So all I did, James, was take about 30 years of being a trainer and say, I can be a coach. I can be a trainer. I can be a speaker. I can do the things for others and still bring value to myself. Trust me, guy, the transition was smoother than it sounds for most people that are laid off, because I think my head and my heart were ready for it.
And I think that is huge for everybody watching. Your attitude, even while you're working and working for the 30 years that you did, is I'm an entrepreneur. I'm going to leverage the resources that I have at my disposal. Working within this organization, even though I'm in an organization, I'm going to be highly efficient and highly productive. And look what it allowed you to do. Without skipping a beat, you moved from the corporate environment to your own environment, but you didn't have to develop a new mindset or new skill sets. You just carried them with you.
Carried it with you.
And anybody who's working right now in a job or in an organization, but think like an entrepreneur. Think about being productive and getting the highest return on investment for your time and money. Not only are you going to get rewarded from the organization, not only are you going to secure your position more than any other time right now, but if for some reason the marketplace just doesn't support your position, you're going to be able to move on a dime without skipping a beat and start something up like you did.
It's perfect.
Now,
there were times as a trainer, James, that, if you think about it, think about corporate training, you don't really have to advertise and market yourself. But I did anyway. And I actually had people say that even if I don't come to your classes, I love your marketing, your emails, because what that did, even in a sense of just communicating, was uplift their spirits. And it reminded them, James, that when it does come time for training, I want to go with that guy.
Yeah, and that is the model these days, especially in speaking and information. Add value first.
Yeah.
Express who you are and your best stuff, because it's no longer about a slick sales letter or having a good, interface. People aren't going to trust that. They want to know that the good stuff is behind the closed door and they're already in the house, so to speak. So, absolutely
Excellent.
Great point. So, Bob, talk to me about how you knew this was your purpose. This is what you were so designed to do as your life work now.
A lot like you, James, at a very young age, I realized that I got tapped on the shoulder for a reason. And I mean that. There was someone who said, hey, Bob, how would you like to be? And then you can fill in the blank. I use the word facilitator. I didn't realize it until I did it, James. But once I did, I got that taste of, oh, my God, this is what I was meant to do. That may have been back in corporate, but you carry that seed within you so that whether it's 30 years or 300 years later, you're ready to rock when the time comes. So I had that same installation in me all the time. I just kept it with me and just thought, okay, so now I'm out of doors. I'll just do what I need.
I'm going to carry it on. Now, so many people say, oh, you're so lucky. You know what your purpose is. You know what you want to do. Maybe you're starting to hear that too now, Bob. How do you describe to somebody who maybe hasn't ever had that experience? First of all, what is that experience like? And second of all, how can they create a similar experience in their life no matter where they are right now?
It's a feeling that we trainers use an expression called the aha moments. And when we're training somebody, James, just like the expressions I see in your face, there's that, aha, wow, I think I got it, man, that's so cool. All I can tell you is that when I was in a classroom and I started working with people and even did some webinar kind of things, I realized I was in tune with not only myself better, but the other folks that I was helping and assisting. There's a connection there, James, that I know you understand intuitively, but that's what I would counsel anyone to do. If you can find something that makes your heart beat faster, man, that just makes you want to get up in the morning, you know what? You just found it, guy. All you got to do is keep following it.
Well, and it's not just skydiving or adrenaline junkie heart racing. It's the kind of feel good, I'm adding value to this world kind of feeling. I think there's a subtle distinction, because we can do the things that are exciting and you know, light us up when we're doing it, like ride on a roller coaster. Anybody can do that. Right. But what you're talking about is the kind of more, I guess, deeper impact. Yeah. You're impacted on more than just a physical level, and you're saying once you touch that place, you want to go there all the time.
All the time. And I'll tell you what, there's no greater feeling for me in my particular life than being able to look out, and I do it now with people with video commercials and things, and they just say, my friends are all talking about it, James. It's the greatest thing since, and I just think, I had a piece of that, man. I got a piece of their soul. Not that I own it, but I'm just saying I contributed to what they did.
You're not in the soul business.
No. But when you think about it, when you've contributed and added value to somebody else, doesn't that really add value to you? Isn't that the ultimate?
Let me ask you this, because I agree totally. In your opinion, why do you think it is that people have a challenge? Some people have a challenge with crossing that line. You know, I think everybody, it's in their spirit, it's in their essence. Everybody wants to help somebody. Everybody wants to be valuable, wants to add value to this world. And maybe they're not sure how. They don't know where to begin. They don't know how to break out of what they're already in. What advice do you have to give, even coming from that background? What advice do you have to give for folks like that?
Well, the first thing I would ask people to think about is to think about what they love in terms of what might be called a career, James. It doesn't have to be called that. But when we talk about do what you love and the money will follow, that's some great advice. But I say do what you love and the happiness will follow. Because what's going to happen eventually, James, if you think back, even though mom bought all the stuff, the point was you're doing what you love. And whether it's 40 years or 22 years later, you've got to first decide, what is it that I want to do? What do I want to give? And if you have the patience, man, eventually someone's going to go, hey, James, why don't you do this thing where it's like, you know, we can connect with people and broadcast it throughout the world. That becomes your mission, your goal. And you don't even realize it or think about it as a job. You just say, hey, man, I'm living it.
Yeah, you know, you bring back that time to me, Bob, where I mean, I was just creating for the joy of it, and then afterwards I was like, well, now I've got all these paintings sitting here. I might as well put some price tags on them and go try to sell them and share them with folks. So really, it's the ingredient that I applied as a 4-year-old. You're saying that people need to go out there and create what brings them joy, and they want to share with others. And in that sharing, there can be a marketplace transaction that can actually lead to supporting their lifestyle.
That is the point, James. And the hard thing is to do when someone says, but James, how am I going to put food on the table? Because our first thought is food on the table. Yeah. It isn't, but I want to just do what I want to love, you know. Yeah. So you have to try to combine reality, what we call reality, with can I do this thing I love plus reality?
Plus put food on the table.
Put food on the table. Call it that, man.
I've noticed one of the challenges that I've had in my own life in being able to focus completely on full potential is that I just want to give, man. I just, you know, I wanted to make it accessible and free to everybody, so I needed to fund it some other way, and a lot of that has come from my other business that I've done in parallel to this. Have you noticed something similar? Because for example, I just had a phone call with a lady who works with mothers and daughters, and she's really passionate about helping the kids and the mother, but she's an engineer by trade. She hasn't been able to give up being an engineer to do this full time, but she's found a way to do it in parallel. Her heart is fulfilled in this area, and she puts food on the table in this area. Have you noticed anything similar in your life as you're kind of getting this off the launching pad?
I would say this, because I've been lucky that when I was booted out the door, I had just enough income to maintain food on the table and then still follow my dream. But for the people, James, that haven't, you know, let's just use the engineer's case. If they haven't found the other thing they love to do, that's the key to reality. Keep being the engineer, but if you can volunteer, do something that allows you to at least give and help others, you're going to find that a transition point will happen that you might just say, well, you know, I have enough money from the engineering job to maybe make this startup a little bit easier. The point is, James, in real life, you got to be able to take a transition and say, I still need food on the table, guy, but I want to do this thing that I love. Parallels of work.
It's such a great point, Bob. I mean, what we're really saying is, no longer is it an excuse to say, well, I can't make money doing that. Okay, if you can't make money doing it, but you love to do it, do it. Do it instead of watching TV, instead of doing any kind of low-value thing, instead of going to the movies, do the thing you love, and at some point, there's going to be an opening, and that transition point could mean that you can leave behind the what put food on the table that wasn't necessarily your heart's passion to doing what you're passionate about and making money doing it. But you've got to create the transition point, is what you're saying.
You hit the nail on the head, James. And like I say, you're one of those guys that got it from 4 years old, man. So I realize I'm preaching. But for all your listeners, for all the people that are saying, come on, man, be real, that's real. What you just said was transition. You get to do things parallel. That's so cool.
Well, and Bob, to be very honest, I maybe had it as a kid, and maybe I was smarter as a younger kid. But I think I lost it for a little while, man. I got on the success track. I got culturally programmed to just success means money and financial gain. And then when I lost my footing and I was able to contrast it with what I really wanted to do to make myself happy in life, I regained it. So I think that's an important lesson too for folks that, I think as kids we have such big ideas and big dreams, and we are automatically life is so easy, we don't have to worry about putting food on the table. So we just kind of follow what we want to do. We get up. If we want to punch our brother or something, we do it. But there comes a time when we start acting more responsibly and doing what is culturally programmed if we're not aware.
That's true.
If we're not aware of what's driving our heart. So for me, I went through that process, and then I stepped out of it and said, what is really going to make me happy and give me a high return on life?
There you go.
That's what you're doing now, too.
That's a blessing, man. And like I say, that just what you're doing right here and being able to say you speak with people and you're broadcasting to people. I mean, James, that is the ultimate. Because let's face it, I know you say this in a lot of parts of your website. It's communications, guy. It's always been, is now, and always will be about communications.
And speaking of communication, Bob, let's talk briefly before we wrap up. What is it that you do for folks that want to share their message with the world? I think right now, video communications, video commercials are hugely important to getting the message out and sharing what you have inside with the world in a way that is articulated for other people to understand. What is it that you help people do, and where can they learn more about the good work you're doing?
I'm trying to work with people now to first get them to think about everything that they say, James, and just like this, where we have a time frame we have to wrap up, to get them to think, can I say what I need to say in a concise time frame? And then, but to still keep the passion in their communication, because let's face it, when someone communicates on a commercial, you've got about 15 seconds to go, hey, that's James Rick, man, I want to talk with that. And just like you said, where do I follow up? Where do I go for more? Because in a world of texting, in a world of Twittering, guy, you got to get it across, get it down, get it fast, and then send them to PresCoach.com. That's just the way we do things on this planet. So I'm blessed with the ability to communicate, but more importantly, James, I have the soul of a teacher. And the real soul of a teacher puts their arm around somebody and goes, hey, James, you're up next, guy. Let me tell you about this picture. And they coach the person till they feel comfortable being themselves in their communication mode.
And I think that's such a great distinction, Bob, because what you're saying is a great teacher doesn't fill your head with what to think. A great teacher sort of unmasks all the things that get in the way of who you truly are and the greatness inside that you want to express in whatever communication form. In this case, you're doing it through video.
Exactly right. And when they blossom, James, when they get it, that seed again, back to the driveway where the paintings were, once that sits in, guy, I'm telling you, they start to go, well, what's next? What else can I do? I want to show them my wares. I want to show them. Of course you can. Why not? So I kind of live in the now. I kind of live in the what can I do for the people I network with. I do a lot of in-person networking. But everything I do, James, these days, I try to plop something out on Facebook, put something on LinkedIn. I'm always trying to video communicate so that people know I'm trying to walk the talk.
And where can they learn more about the work you're doing, Bob?
Okay, but PresCoach.com, my website explains in detail everything that I do. And I like to say that it shows in detail by a lot of my video testimonials what I've been able to do for the folks that I work with. After that, My email address, which is listed on there, is bob.turel@gmail.com, 727-360-0195. I love receiving calls and questions from anybody at any time because, James, when you live it, man, you're always willing to talk it.
You're always on. I love it. That's so true. You're not working, you're playing. All right, Bob Turel, PresCoach.com. We'll put the URL up on the screen. Bob, thank you so much for being on today's Full Potential Show.
Thank you, man. It was great meeting you. I hope I see you again sometime.
Absolutely. And Bob, take care. Thank you.
You too.
Bye-bye.
God bless.
Well, that concludes this week's episode of the Full Potential Show, your number one non-boring source for personal development. I'm James Rick, and if you want to get more positive programming for your brain absolutely free on a weekly basis, just visit fullpotential.com.